Well, 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 well. Well, well, well. George Pickens. George Pickens just a week ago was being talked about to get a big contract with the Cowboys, how the Cowboys ought to keep George Pickens, and how George Pickens is the best wide receiver in the league, if not one of the best wide receivers in the league, top 5 easy. How does George Pickens in 1 week goes from media darling to Richard Sherman and others doing this?
George Pickens throughout the game, especially late in the game, just looked uninterested in playing football. And that's what you can't have. If you're going to be a superstar, if you want to be the best receiver in the National Football League, you can't ever be disengaged. It doesn't matter if the game's going your way or not going your way. You can't just disappear in these games or else you're not going to have impact. And just right here, cruising route. You're the guy. CD Lamb is not in this game. He's out, and you get intercepted on your slant routes, and you can't be the guy and half-ass it. And I'm sorry, that's just, you can't, it's unacceptable. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're looking at him and you're looking to pay him big-time receiver money, $40 million, you got to look at this tape and say, hey, is this a guy we can trust paying $40 million to show up regardless of circumstance? I don't know.
One game? So 1 game, we're questioning now whether or not we should keep George Pickens. 1 game, people on the internet, people on X, same old George Pickens. People on our own local radio stations talking about how special Pickens is, as in he's the type of person that he just checks out. Really? Well, I'm going to show you how I know that these people are not only prisoners of the moment, but let me tell you something about people. When you are a person that people say certain things about, whether it's true or not, there are certain people, they're always waiting on you to be who they told you were. Or they're always waiting on when you make a change, they're waiting on you to revert back to who you were. They are always preying on your downfall. And I'm laughing because none of these people were saying anything near this just a week ago. But now the Cowboys, when they sit down and talk to George Pickens, no matter what happens the rest of this season and no matter what happens previous to this game, so the Cowboys need to pull up this game and tell George Pickens and David Mulugeta that he ain't worth the money that he deserves. Let's talk Cowboys. We're about to talk facts. Welcome, Cowboy fans and Cowboy haters alike. I'm the G, and I'm the host of Let's Talk Cowboys, where we talk facts. And if you like this video, don't forget at the end to please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know the next time we post another video or go live. If you haven't become a channel member subscriber yet, please do. We got more things coming up the remainder of this season. Now let's talk facts. George Pickens. George Pickens has been incredible. George Pickens has arguably been the best wide receiver in this league. The only person that could argue this is Njigba. He's the only one that could argue this. That doesn't diminish CD Lamb. That doesn't diminish anyone else. George Pickens has been incredible. But this game, where not only was he not good, but it seemed like the Cowboys' entire team was struggling for whatever reason. And a part of this is I'm still going to give Detroit credit. They came in with a great game plan. And as I said earlier, the Cowboys were up against history, man. The Detroit Lions, nobody has beaten them back-to-back. No team has beaten them after they have come off of a loss since 2022 of October. But nevertheless, George Pickens, because George Pickens, people saying he was disengaged, because they're talking about the way that he runs his routes or ran his routes in that game. I'm going to show you that people don't know what they're talking about. Because the reality is, George Pickens has been running his routes like this. See, a lot of people don't understand something the Detroit Lions did. Where everyone else were afraid of George Pickens in that slant play, the Detroit Lions were not afraid. The Detroit Lions did something very specific. Brian Broaders talked about this on the radio today. I talked about it last night. People are lying to themselves when they're saying that George Pickens was single covered. That is not true. I'm going to show you something from this clip that we just watched from X. Sorry, I don't have the high quality version. Don't want to get copyright struck by the NFL. But I'm going to show you something that the Detroit Lions did that was so powerful against George Pickens that stopped that slant play. And then I'm going to show you how I know that George Pickens has been running his routes like this all season long. First, let's go back to this footage. So watch this right here. These are the plays. George Pickens has been doing this. He's been doing this all season. This is how he runs his routes. Wherever George Pickens was, the Detroit Lions made the cornerback play him extremely tight and then had someone else always in the vicinity in case he tried to break it or go upfield. Watch this play as it unfolds. Look how tight the corner is playing. It's like he knows the route. They did great film work on the Cowboys. He knows the route. Look at this. He's going to try to undercut this route. Look. They were waiting on this. People are mad at George Pickens on this play because George Pickens can see that not only does he have a man under him, but he also has this man coming into the scene, and he doesn't want to get his clock cleaned on this play. Stop it. This is pure madness. George Pickens, the way he runs this route, this is how he's been running them all season. This right here, notice the corner again played him real tight. Why? Because the Detroit Lions challenged that slant play. They challenged it. They said, we will take the challenge that nobody else has taken. We will take the challenge. He was waiting on that slant play. He jumped it. And Pickens, of course, Pickens didn't extend his arms as people are nitpicking or whatever the case may be. But I'm going to lean a little bit more towards something else with George Pickens. George Pickens is perceiving that they are on to him and they have plans on stopping him, and they're very aggressive in how they're doing it. And the thing that bothered me is that Shotty and these guys, they did not make any adjustments to say, oh, wait a minute, hold on a second. They've made adjustments to stop these plays that we are typically running to George Pickens. Because watch what happens on this play. Broaders talked about this just like I talked about it last night. What you don't see in this picture that's going to come very quickly is that the linebacker was already cheating over towards George Pickens. Watch what happens as we keep this going. Stop saying that George Pickens was disengaged, no effort. No. George Pickens is noticing something. I mean, I'm sure if you were to really ask him, he's noticing something. And I'm going to let you hear him in his own words. George knew this. They were keying on him. They had every intention. They studied the Cowboys. The Cowboys lackadaisical in their use of George Pickens. The Detroit Lions had George Pickens' number based on what they were calling. Now, the only play that I truly said, okay, George could have made a better effort on is on the go route that everybody is showing, where the ball bounced about 2 yards around on the side of him, and George didn't make an effort at that. But by that time, the game, it's a 2-score game, and they're down by, I think, 2 touchdowns, and George just doesn't want to make. I don't know what's going through his head on that. But George didn't do anything there. But when you look at these other plays, George has been running his routes like this. George has been running his routes like this. The issue is that teams have not been as aggressive until this Detroit Lions game, to where they were saying, we're going to take a chance. We're gonna undercut everything short. And look at what he does. He breaks on the ball before George Pickens. That is not a lack of effort, folks. That is not a lack of effort. That right there, my friends, is actually called film study. The Detroit Lions did a great job of film study on how the Cowboys have been using George Pickens. George Pickens has been running his routes like this. Let me let you in on something else that I let y'all hear yesterday, and people didn't pick up on. Something that Steve Smith Sr. said about George Pickens. Check this out. Now listen to what Steve Smith Sr. is going to say about George Pickens, and this is very important. Listen closely.
Than him, because George Pickens is one of the most creative route runner, and the way he runs his routes, if you watch him, you think he's jogging.
What did you say, Steve Smith Sr.? What did you say, Steve Smith Sr.? Let me play this again.
And the way he runs his routes, if you watch him, you think he's jogging. But
George Pickens has been running his routes like this all season long. The issue is Detroit noticed it. And they were very aggressive on him in his short route running. The Cowboys with the slants, the comebacks, they were very aggressive, and they always made sure that wherever he was, they either cheated over the safety or they cheated over the linebacker, even though it doesn't look like double coverage, but they are kind of playing him double coverage. Steve Smith Sr. said it looks like he's jogging. Listen.
He's not. He's just a galloper. He's a long stride guy. He's very sneaky on his releases. He loves to really kind of play like a basketball player a little bit when he gets his release. But once he gets the ball in there, he's trying to grab a rebound. He high points the ball every single chance. No ball is uncatchable outside of his shoulder range, whether it's over the shoulder, down low, just playing really, really good football.
They're lying. They're not telling the truth about George Pickens. What we don't want to accept is that Detroit caught on to this and they said, we can defend this. Let's play him tighter. Let's get some help over there. Let's challenge that slant play. Let's challenge those, the way he gallops and it's like he's baiting the corner or whatever the case he's doing. He's kind of baiting to try to get that corner to bite or whatever the case may be. No, they were hyper aggressive, and they also had help on George Pickens. So then let us go to George Pickens in his own words as he's going to clap back at Richard Sherman in his press conference last night. And then on X, he unleashed. Check this out.
You probably haven't seen it yet, but Richard Sherman said in postgame that players like you, quote, can't disappear in big games like this. Is that a fair standard to set for you, or what do you think about those comments?
Definitely for myself personally. Like you said, definitely for myself personally, you just can't disappear. But schematically, as like, a reporter, like whatever his job holds, and he played ball, he got to kind of understand the type of defense they're playing as well.
Do you think
That was the key. George Pickens is seeing what's going on out there. You can call it what you want to, but George Pickens could clearly see that the Detroit Lions had not only his number, but they had the Cowboys' number. And that's why he said earlier in that press conference that they out-executed the Cowboys. I'm telling you, people should be ashamed of themselves the way they're talking about George Pickens. I don't have a problem with the critique of his game per se. But I have a problem when people go all the way toward, because one game, the Cowboys need to be questioning whether or not they need to keep George Pickens. Oh, it's the same George Pickens from Pittsburgh. Oh, it's George Pickens. He checks out. He's a basket case. He's this different kind of player that when he doesn't want to play, he doesn't play. Stop this madness. The Detroit Lions. It's called film study. They had George Pickens' number. Shameful the way that people have came at George Pickens. Again, I don't have a problem with people critiquing his game. I mean, they did the same thing to CeeDee Lamb. They critiqued his game. But even people took it too far with CeeDee Lamb, talking about trading CeeDee Lamb and all of this old dumb stuff. Now we're talking about don't need to sign George Pickens. The Cowboys, when they do his contract, over one game? Ridiculous. Oh, but it was such a big game. Philly was a big game. Kansas City was a big game. The problem with every game the Cowboys play, I said this already, every game from this point forward is a big game. Philadelphia goes and loses to the Chargers. The Vikings is going to be a big game. Every game's a big game. The Cowboys need to win out to have a chance to win to go to the playoffs. And finally, let me show you this. This is George Pickens' reply, allegedly. They said this was posted on Twitter and then it was erased. Allegedly, this is George Pickens. It says here, this is a team game, laughing my butt off. I'm not the only one on the team. Stop becoming an analyst and talking about one player when he playing a team's game. Lots of stuff has to go right for explosive plays. And it's funny because I thought former players would know such as Richard blank Sherman, who, by the way, ain't nothing without the Legion of Boom. We all remember San Francisco, bro. Much love. Don't speak on me unless you know the game of football. As a former player, not a blank rider, fan analysts that act like double team is not a thing or certain bracket coverages don't exist, knowing you played ball, which shows me you are Leach weirdo. Now, I'm not applauding the language he used. I'm not applauding the way he clapped back with the language. But I am applauding that he's actually speaking facts. I said this last night. Brian Broader said it today. I just showed it to you on that crazy looking film that we used from X that somebody posted. They were not single covering George Pickens the way people say they were. They were cheating coverage over to George Pickens, and they were allowing the corner to be hyper aggressive to stop those, especially that slant play, to stop that slant play and to stop some of the things that the Cowboys had been getting away with George Pickens. Man, George Pickens been running his routes the way he ran his routes last night. Again, I don't think this was a matter of George Pickens not engaged. I think this was a matter of George Pickens realizing that the Detroit Lions were on to him. And Brian and those guys should have made adjustments. They really should have. CeeDee Lamb was having a big day, and I think CeeDee was benefiting from what they were doing to George Pickens. I just wish they could have got CeeDee involved a lot earlier. and they probably could have got some heat off of Pickens, and then they could have used both of them. And this is one problem I have right now with Brian Schottenheimer. They have not figured out a way to get both of these guys going in the same game. I mean, I think we saw it somewhat in the Kansas City game, but it's kind of been far in between when we really get both of them going and just punish teams. But that'll come with time. That'll come with time. It's the first year. 4 more games to go. A lot of football to be played. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Man, this is crazy. I can understand, even if you want to criticize some of the things that they criticize. But, man, to start talking about this dude's contract and he might not be worth it, and same old George Pickens and George Pickens from Pittsburgh, stop this stuff. It's absolutely madness. Tell me what y'all think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Until the next time, TC4L, God bless. Let's talk Cowboys where we talk facts. Peace.